Welcome back to session 3. So let's do a quick recap as to where we've been. We've said so far that strongholds in our lives often begin with a wound that we experience, right? So it might be a traumatic event where someone we trust hurt us deeply, and perhaps it was public in nature. We then said that these wounds make us emotionally vulnerable, right? So that we begin to believe certain lies about ourselves, about others, and about God. Well, in this session, we're going to talk about what happens next because what happens next after believing that lie that came as a result of a wound is oftentimes where it becomes a spiritual stronghold in our lives. So here is point number 3, and it's this that if you choose to believe the lies of the enemy that he's planting in your heart, it will become a vow that you make in order to protect yourself, but actually it ends up imprisoning you. So let me explain what I mean by vows because when I say vows, I'm not talking about some sort of assertive statement that you've made, but rather a vow is a mindset that you and I adopt when we experience pain, and we adopt this mindset so that someone doesn't hurt us again or we don't allow others to do something to us. These vows are essentially creeds through which we begin to live our lives. And most vows are or start with an I will, right? They are an I will statement. Oftentimes they're paired with the words never. Let me give you a few examples of I will vows that you made as a result of lie you believe because of a wound you experienced. So you may have said to yourself something along these lines: I will never trust another man again, or I will never trust another woman again. I will prove to my dad that I'm a man and I have what it takes, or filling your mom in that position. Here's one: I will never trust black people. I will never trust white people. Or if you're a Nigerian, like I'll never trust Fulani people or Igbo people or Yoruba people. Here's one that as a pastor I hear quite often, and it's this: I will never step foot in a church again till the day I die. Now, some of these vows are okay to make if it keeps us away from unhealthy relationships. But if a vow is rooted in a lie that you believed as a result of a wound, then it's a demonic inspired a vow that's being made because it's keeping you potentially from what God might want to do in your life, right? These vows, once again, are not may not be statements you've made, but it's a mindset that you've adopted through which you're living your life, and so you perhaps have been living your life on defense instead of stepping into what the Father may have in store from you. And so vows may protect you from temporary pain, but actually they end up keeping your heart locked up and shielded behind strongholds so you never experience God's healing. If you're having a hard time um, figuring out what vows you've made, let me ask it this way. Think about it this way: is there a certain type of person or a group of people that you have deep animosity toward? Think through that. Perhaps in your life, perhaps you don't even know them. It may be something specific someone like them said to you or did to you. It may be someone in that group of people, or perhaps you're not even sure why. You just know you have a problem with those types of people. Ask yourself what's behind that. Because that's more than likely a result of a vow that you made so as not to get wounded again, but because it's rooted in a lie, it's very unhealthy. So it's quite simple. Ask yourself, what vows have you made? In your prayers, ask God, like, what vows, oh God, did I make to protect myself? How have I chosen to live my life on defense instead of running into the things God's called you to, and into the relationship God's called you to? You're constantly on defense. Ask God, what vows did I make to protect myself? How have I chosen to live on defense as a result of lies and wounds? And the reason why it is critical that you track this down is because, And let me put it all together for us here. It's because the untreated wounds in our lives that have become lies that we believe and have become vows we make will ultimately become strongholds in our lives, which the enemy of our soul vigorously defends and maintains control of until we can unpack all of that. Now, remember what I said a stronghold is. A stronghold is a repetitive pattern of unhealthy behavior, a sinful habit in our lives that's very difficult to break free from. And so the question that you want to ask in response to vows and in response to stronghold is this is what unhealthy behavior or what unhealthy thought pattern or what sinful habit has a strong hold on your life. I mean, that's what a stronghold. We don't over spiritualize it. A stronghold is literally describe something in your life that has a strong hold on you, and that's the first indication that it might be a strong hold, and it's extremely difficult to break free from. So let me share with you a sample list of strongholds that are mentioned in the Bible, different passages in the Bible. And what I want to do with this is I'm going to put them up on the screen in a moment here, but I'm going to work through some of them. And what I want to do is I want to show you what is behind some of these behaviors that the Bible speaks out against. And then what I want you to keep in mind here is that a sinful behavior in your life is most likely masking a hidden but open wound in your life. And until you unpack that wound, until you unpack that lie, until you unpack that vow, you may find it very difficult to break free from whatever sin has a strong hold on you. So, we're going to put them up on the screen right now. These are different passages that the Bible mentions strongholds in. And so let's talk about each some of them and tell you what's behind it. So, for example, if a sin you're battling with in your life is drunkenness, right? If it's alcohol drunkenness, chances are you're trying to silence a negative voice in your life. Or you're trying to avoid something, right? If it's drunkenness or drugs, you're probably trying to silence something. You're trying to numb yourself to it. If the sin you're battling with is sexual sin, you're probably seeking acceptance. If the sin you're battling with is pride, then you're probably trying to prove something. If the sin you're battling with is unforgiveness, then chances are you are nursing a deep wound. If what you're battling with is bitterness, it means that you're dissatisfied with something. If it's anger or rage, then something was probably taken from you and you need to identify that thing before you can begin to break free from your stronghold. If it's callousness, don't care what happens, then you probably don't want to address something in your life. If what you're battling is anxiety, then its chances are you're fearful of something in your life. If it's depression, then chances are you have made something into an idol in your life and it's not lived up to your expectation. What is that thing? If lying is the sin you're battling with, then you're probably trying to hide something. If it's manipulation, which is another form of lying, then chances are you want power over something. If it's laziness, then perhaps you don't know what your purpose is. If it's arrogance, chances are you are afraid for something to be known about you. And if it's religion, then you're trying to earn something, you're trying to prove something. Listen, the troublesome aspect of a stronghold is that it may not even be a bad thing in your life that you're caught up in. Your stronghold can be good things like an overindulgence in food. Food is a good thing, but overindulgence is not. It could be religion, perhaps overactivity in church at the cost of your well-being or your family's happiness. It could be a fierce overprotectiveness, which is fine, but if it's rooted in a demon-inspired lie that stemmed from a wound, then it becomes toxic. So now let's put this all together. Like when we get to week 2, we're going to discuss how to actually break free from strongholds. But for this week and really in this session, what I really wanted you to do is begin to unpack those wounds. And listen to this. Revelation is the first step to breaking free from strongholds. It's the first step from breaking free from strongholds. And that's our prayer, that this week, as we've gone through these processes, that the Lord would begin to bring to light those wounded areas of your life. Because by doing this hard work of introspection, with all the questions I've challenged you to respond to, by doing this hard work of introspection, what you're doing is you're going to put a significant crack in the foundations of the walls of your stronghold. And so this week, like I said, like you've done at other sessions, we're going to wrap up this final session in this week's teaching by working through these reflect and respond discussions. And like I prayed in the first session, I want to pray again, because as I've taught this enough times, where I've discovered that sometimes this week, as you're working through this, God will begin to reveal things to you. It may come in a dream. It may come as you're discussing with some family members or some close friends. God will suddenly begin to bring things out. I would challenge you, begin to journal, begin to write down names and faces and memories that God is bringing to mind, because it could be that much of what you're wrestling with today is rooted in those events of which God is stirring up your memories for. And so that's my prayer for you. So at this time, as we wrap up this week's session, like we always do, I'm going to ask you to go to the resources section on this page and find the link for the reflect and respond questions. Click on it, print it out, and begin to prayerfully reflect and respond to these questions. And as you do, my prayer is that the Holy Spirit of God would remove any veil that's blocking any significant memories that need to be addressed, and that the Spirit of God would help you pinpoint the root causes of any issues you're wrestling with today. May the Spirit of God guide you and lead you. Catch you next week.